Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It is our pleasure that you are joining us here tonight. My name is Natalie Hoffman, and I am one of the directors at the Woodsworth College Alumni Association. Please note that we have enabled live captioning. You can view the captions by selecting the CC button along the bar at the bottom of the screen and selecting Show Captions. Even though this is an online event, we are here as a community within the University of Toronto. As such, we wish to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and gather on this land. We are thrilled to be here for the 5th Alumni Café event of this academic year. On the agenda for tonight, we will first hear from one of our speakers, Dejan Grahovac, followed by a conversation moderated by my fellow director, May, to discuss tonight's timely topic, adapting to a post-COVID labor market, networking, reskilling, and remote work. The panel discussion will be followed by a Q&A session, so please submit your questions and comments in the chat. Following the Q&A, our second speaker, Hanna, will share her closing statement. Please join us in breakout rooms after, which will be on assigned topics that you will hear from the speakers tonight, and they will open shortly after my closing remarks. Both of our speakers are experts in change management and human resources, and we are very fortunate to have them both with us tonight to share their expertise. Hanna has over 17 years of professional work experience in the corporate finance and consulting industry. Currently, she is a graduate professor at York University School of Continuing Studies, where she teaches business communications. Dejan currently works at BMO in the position of manager, change management, and business operations. He has many years of experience executing strategic initiatives, change management programs, supporting retention and recruitment programs, and strategic human resource campaigns. With this very brief introduction, I will pass it on to May to lead the conversation on adapting to the post-COVID labor market.
Thank you, Natalie, and welcome everyone. It has been 3 full years since COVID started, and everyone started exploring working from home or hybrid arrangements. It has also been a full year since the monetary policy began to tighten in Canada, and I'm sure we all have been observing the effects spreading throughout the economy. The initial impact was felt in our housing market. Household interest payments have been climbing, mortgage payments, line of credits, etc. And we're also facing decades high inflation. All these factors are cooling consumer spending, and business spending is also showing early signs of stress. On the other hand, the labor market has shown continued resiliency, which is supporting household income. Job reports have come in much stronger than expected for the last few months. We all hope that job vacancies will continue to absorb a lot of the negative impacts on the labor markets right now. All that being said, we would like to host this event and provide you with insights from our industry experts about what is happening in the labor market since COVID, and most importantly, how to position ourselves in the post-COVID era. I know we have tons of material to cover, so I'll stop talking. We'll commence with Dejan's opening statement, and then we'll start the panel discussion. Dejan, would you please share your opening statement with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you, May. Thank you, Natalie. It's an achievement just to get my name right. So kudos to you guys. And thank you all for having me and Hanna tonight. I really wanted to start this session off tonight with a story, and it's directly related to networking. And this is a completely true story, and it's completely by chance. So as Natalie had mentioned, I do work for BMO. A little known fact is that Hanna used to work for the Bank of Montreal as well. And me and Hanna, prior to this initiative, have never met. We've never talked, never spoke. We didn't know anything about each other. And you can imagine BMO has 55,000 employees globally. Well, the fun fact is as Hanna transitioned into her role now at York University, I actually assumed her role. So as you can imagine, the likeliness of that happening is almost slim to none. And I've used this format and prepping for this initiative to be able to learn and grow my career. So I've been leveraging Hanna's expertise, being that she was in my role prior to me joining, and again, completely by chance. I've been able to utilize her expertise, and that's ultimately helped me transition into my role and become a better employee for the Bank of Montreal. I'll be able to connect with Hanna, build a relationship, and ultimately get to share some of the wisdom she shared with myself with you guys tonight. So thanks again for having us, and over to you, May.
Thank you, Dejan. That was very fitting to our focus night tonight on networking and how to build and enhance your professional relationships. All right, now we'll start our panel discussion. Just a friendly reminder to our audience that the panel discussion is around 5 questions prepared by the board. It will be followed by a Q&A session. So we encourage you to submit your questions and comments to our hosts and panelists. We'll gather the questions and our panelists will respond at the end. So I'll start with my first question. Could you please help us understand the changes in the job market post-COVID from both employer and employees' perspectives? Hanna, I'll let you talk first.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, everybody. Welcome to this event tonight. So the pandemic has really changed the job market from the employer's perspective, right? So prior to the pandemic, I would imagine every organization had their 5-year plan to recruit talent from around their main headquarters. But because of pandemic, that really changed the landscape in terms of how employers have refined their HR strategy to hire across the nation, so hire across borders. And the interesting thing about that is actually aligned to their diversity, equity, inclusion, social responsibility, and sustainability strategies as well. So it's actually an opportunity for them to expand their footprint. For example, I could take the Bank of Montreal as an example, enabling them to hire into regions that are not close to their headquarters, going into northern Canada, eastern, western Canada as well, and also bringing opportunities to those that are in rural areas, marginalized areas, and giving them opportunities to be a part of the job market. So that really changed the way that organizations pursue talent recruitment and attracting talent from across the country.
Yeah, so I'll add to that, Hanna. That was great. When I think of how the pandemic and this post-COVID environment really changed the recruitment lens, the job lens, I really think about how much the pandemic digitized all the industries, right? So industries that traditionally weren't digital, big banking, consumer packaged goods, instantly became digital organizations. They were competing with the Metas, the Googles for top talent. And that really created an ecosystem of competitiveness. We heard all the terms, the great resignation, the great acceleration. Now we're talking about potentially maybe a recession. So all these terms are being thrown around, and it's really difficult to navigate. But what's really important about being able to understand this job market is how do you differentiate yourself? And you're going to see a lot of the questions around that get into those aspects and how to stand out. But I think another big key is understanding how companies are using technology. So as Hanna mentioned, there's a big push for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Companies are using software and tools to help them stand out and be more inclusive organizations. At the same time, things like Zoom fatigue, taking almost all your interviews on Zoom, that creates its own set of issues. And it's about adjusting and being able to learn, adapt to those. As well, the concept of unconscious bias, being that you're in a remote world, we see each other in these 5-inch by 5-inch squares every single day. it's about understanding how we can navigate and identify unconscious bias and using tools to help us surpass those. And then from an employee perspective, so everybody from who's on this call, who's looking for potential position, try to navigate their career, or just receive some insight, it's about understanding the perspective. It's about being able to show your qualitative personal skills, not just what's quantitative on paper, and being able to shine that through technology now that we're no longer really in a face-to-face environment.
Thank you, Hanna and Dejan, for your insights. So this leads us to our next point for discussion. My next question is, in your experience, what are some of the strategies for building connections and networking in a virtual environment, say where we're at right now post-COVID, and how to prepare for an in-person networking opportunity? Also, what are the best practices for building professional connections in both virtual and in-person settings? Dejan, would you like to take it on first?
Yeah, I'll take that on first. Thanks, May. So I think first and foremost, what we're doing here today is the first step. We're here networking, we're getting to know each other. I mean, I welcome everybody to go on camera and see our smiling faces, and just be able to connect and hear other perspectives, connect with individuals that have like-minded positions. It's really important when we're navigating this digital environment, and getting ready for these in-person events that we've so much loathed over the last few years. It's about being able to align yourself, not only for the company that you want to work for, but for the position. And that can be difficult at times, especially with so much going on social networks like LinkedIn. But it's really important that when you are leveraging tools, that you make yourself visible. You need to be able to establish and manage an online presence. And it's important that we're all building brands. And like any good brand, you need to be able to stick out. And I think some of the key messages that we can take away is how we leverage social media. So being able to showcase your skills on LinkedIn, and I think, like I said, connecting with like-minded individuals or individuals that have similar job positions, being able to expand your network. I think it's important to join groups of discussions like the one we're in today and show your interest and your career goals. And ultimately, it's important to be able to introduce yourself, be ready, know what you're looking for, and be able to connect with individuals outside of your original scope. Hannah, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's really important that you approach a networking professional connection from 3 points of view. One is to how do you tap into your skills, experiences, and knowledge to add value, to contribute, to serve the connection that you're trying to nurture and establish. Like, how do you use your experience to add value to the person that you're connecting with, right? Because a lot of the times, networkers, they have the objective of securing, either a sales or a job or something that's beneficial to them. But it's really important to approach the connection from the point of view of how do you serve, how do you give back, how do you actually showcase your skills and knowledge that will be of value to the person that you're creating the connection with. And I think if you approach the connection from that foundation as well, it will be beneficial to you and the person. Because when you give and when you serve and you add value, you are also demonstrating, right? You're showing your skill set, you're showing your experience, you're showing your confidence. And so it's sort of like a great way to bring the value that you have on paper to life.
Thank you. I think as you both have indicated, whether virtual or in person, I think the key is to add value, no matter what you are doing, like offer, like making sure the other party understands what you can bring to the table and realize it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
If I could also add as well is to kind of like have the curiosity mindset as to learn about the person and what they care about. Why are they associated with their organization that they're with? What about the values of the organization that appeals to them? And also find out what, community values that they have, and see if you could sort of bridge your skills and experience to that aspect of their life as well, to add value. It's not always just about adding to the professional sort of realm of their profile, but also really understanding and getting to know them of like who they are and what they care about, and then adding value there as well.
Thank you. All right. So moving on to our next point for the discussion, which is crucial in the current world that we live in, how to manage mental health during a job search or when facing job loss. So Hanna, I will direct the question first to you.
Yeah, so when I was a part of the BMO Institute for Learning, I supported, subject matter experts in resilience. So these are seasoned facilitators who created a program for women entrepreneurs, and it's called Being Resilient. And so I think that resilience has been a topic that has been discussed quite a lot during the pandemic, because it's so crucial and important for us to nurture, take care of our mental health, and not just from the sort of any clinical medical perspective, but there's a lot of things that we can do to help us nurture and take care of our mental health, especially in a situation of job loss. And that is not something that's new during the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, job loss, reorgs, or if you're a part of a restructure where your role or your job is deemed no longer viable, or you've been restructured out of an organization that you've been a part of for the majority of your career, there's a lot of negative stigmatization that is associated with that sort of builds this impact on your mental health. But after the pandemic, I think the stigma actually is falling off. It's kind of disappearing, because the restructuring, the reorg, the job loss is happening across the board. So it's not just targeted as a certain hierarchy or tenor in the organization. It's pretty much happening across the board. And so I think people are realizing that it's not something to be so sort of shameful about, especially with people who have sort of aligned their personal values with their firm or organizational values. It could be, quite a shock to have that severance or that disruption happen. And I think that, being resilient, taking care of your mental health is really important. And the way that you do that is really take stock of your achievements, right? Of your accomplishments, of your skills, of your abilities, of your strength, of where you add value, and ensuring that you always have that sort of like a shining beacon to your now searching for a new career or a new position or a new role within a new organization, is to ensure that you take care of yourself. And it starts with mindset, taking stock of your achievements and accomplishments, and keeping those at the forefront of your mind when you are going through the journey of securing sort of a new space in a new career area.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that too as well. So, being that a lot of individuals are in a new environment, whether it's being in a fully remote role, being in a hybrid model, it can be difficult to separate work from home life. I know myself, being in a fully remote role, I work in the same house and I live in the same house, and that can be daunting. Often we find ourselves working, longer hours, whether it's, it's hard to disconnect. And I think what's important is being able to take a step back, be mindful, understand your needs as an individual. I know, for example, myself, one of my outlets to relieve stress and to manage my mental well-being is I like to partake in sports. I'm an avid tennis player, for example, So I like to go out. I like to hang out with friends. I have a puppy. I find myself taking that time for myself and being able to just disconnect. And that can be hard. Like I said, it can be really hard knowing that your computer, your office is right across from you, or it's in your living room or kitchen or wherever it may be. So it's just important, like as Hanna was saying, to just take time for yourself. Understand what you need as an individual and prioritize yourself. And definitely, yeah, there is no stigma when it comes to things like job loss or anything of that sort. It's extremely prevalent in today's market. And just know that, I guess now more than ever, we're more connected, and that serves benefits. We can share that kind of joy and pain at the same time with each other, and be able to leverage our networks to move forward.
Thank you, Dejan. I think one thing I noticed is nowadays on social media or LinkedIn, I see a lot of posts from people discussing how they're experiencing or they just experienced layoff or job loss, and I think that's something new that people are coming forward and explaining their situation and reaching out for help. Not sure if you guys want to add on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it kind of goes to what Hannah was saying earlier, right? The stigma of losing your job, having to hide it, going home, or whatever it may be, it's gone. Um, Social media tools like LinkedIn are a great outlet. They're a great outlet to share experience, share where you are, network. And I think being honest about where you are in your career will only benefit you. There's no need to, I think professionally in today's world, there's no need to hide where you are in your career. I think it's important to be active on these outlets, even if you're unemployed or looking for work. And the worst thing that can happen is that you almost turtle and go inside your own shell. You need to be exploring, and that's the only way in today's market that you're going to be able to find yourself being successful post something like a job loss. But absolutely, I think it is a new phenomenon, May, where I log into LinkedIn every day, and I see individuals unfortunately being affected by the market that we're in today. But on a positive note, when I do see those posts, there's ample support. They are getting the views, and oftentimes they are making connections that are only going to benefit them in the future.
Yeah, and also a loss is represents an opportunity as well, right? So during the pandemic, losses occur across the board. But I've also seen now I'm a part of this organization called 100 Women Who Care. So they are a not-for-profit organization that helps local charities raise money. And one of the charities that we came across was a charity that this particular woman, she experienced job loss. She was pursuing higher education, and then she eventually experienced homelessness. But what she did with those opportunities was that she created this charity event where she helps children in shelters or homeless shelters have opportunities to celebrate their birthdays. Because as you know, homelessness is, especially children experiencing homelessness, they rarely have an opportunity to be able to celebrate certain milestones that, some privileged families have. And so she, with jobless and experiencing homelessness herself, pursue this opportunity to provide that wonderful opportunity to celebrate birthdays for children in homeless shelters. And now, she's getting a lot more attraction and credibility. And so, really help her feel the sense of reward as a human being. And so I think that when you look at a loss as an opportunity to pursue something that gives you that avenue to create something else, it's also a blessing in disguise as well. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Thank you so much for all the helpful tips. So my next question is, what kind of skills are in high demand in the current job market? I think there are two hot topics right now. First is remote roles or hybrid. So what kind of skill set do you need for remote or hybrid roles? Second will be AI. We all know that automation, artificial intelligence, They're all like the hottest topics right now. And how can us human beings stay competitive with machines when ChatGPT can literally write an article for you in seconds?
Yeah, so I'll jump in on that.
Sure.
I certainly wish I had Chat GPT when I was in high school and university. I would have probably been an A student. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. And Hannah, I'd actually love to hear how you guys are combating things in terms of like essays and whatnot. But I think that's for a different topic. When I think of skills that we need in this new environment, I think they vary. But I think one key thing is there's a few set of skills that I'm going to name that I think that are really applicable to most roles, especially roles that you can do remotely. And those skills include things like being digitally capable, being able to use technology is more prevalent now than ever before. Even things such as Zoom, PowerPoint, Teams, you name it. We need to be able to be capable with technology. Another key factor is, and specifically relates, for example, to me being in a remote role, you need to have some self-direction. There's nobody overseeing you necessarily on a day-to-day basis, or nobody who can come check your work. It's difficult to collaborate and whiteboard as you would have been able to in the office. So to be able to take accountability and have self-direction is really important. I think a next one that I would call out is probably empathy. So empathy is key. I mean, again, we're in a very digital environment. It could sometimes feel cold. I know even for my team, for example, there's individuals on my team that have never met each other and they've worked for 2-3 years. So building that sense of team can be a little bit difficult. And it's a point that we have empathy. We understand, my dog makes it into more meetings than most people. And, it's about understanding that somebody might have kids, somebody might have other responsibilities in their day-to-day lives, and just being able to empathize with them. I think another key factor is going to be communication management. So communication skills have always been critical, but now we need to be able to extend them across the platform. So like I said, using video conferencing tools, we need to be able to pivot, know how to use them, be able to use words that are easily heard, be able to have the ability to show your concepts and get the messaging across in a concise way is ideal. And then adaptability. So we've all had a tech failure. We've all had, unfortunately, I can say that I've had my projects, not saved. So it's just about being able to have that adaptability, being able to build adaptive muscles and get yourself in a routine so that you can ensure that you're always taking care of what you need to take care of. And then lastly, before I hand over to Hannah, is motivation skills. Like I said earlier, it can be really hard to differentiate between working and home life, especially when it's in the same place. And having motivation is going to be a key component. It's about knowing that when you need to stop working, it's about knowing what you need for your mental well-being. It's about knowing what you need for your physical well-being, but having the motivation to be able to carry on, get yourself to the next place is going to be really key.
Wow, yeah. So as you're talking, I'm trying to think of something that I could add to that. I think you've really covered it holistically and well-rounded. I think the only thing that I would add to that is to continue to develop a curiosity mindset, a learning mindset, an open mindset to learn about people, about their roles, about their jobs, about what are valuable to them, but also staying up with the trends and things that are happening in the marketplace as well. And so, taking that time for personal growth, personal learning, personal development, and also enhancing your knowledge, it's really important too.
Thank you, Dejan. Thank you, Hannah. Well, I'm sure we all have heard a lot of discussions on like AI replacing human jobs. So it was helpful to hear from both of you from that aspect. So now,
sorry, May, I can add to that, even from an AI perspective. So there's a lot of talks around people being afraid that, hey, my role might be eliminated to a computer. Kind of like you alluded to, ChatGPT can write an essay or answer complex algebra faster than any of us could do. And having experience in robotic automation, when I was working at my previous organization, I can tell you one thing is the amount of opportunity that automation provides is uncomparable. It's so much further than the job loss that may occur. When we have new entrants to technology, that also creates jobs, so it creates opportunity, creates higher skilled individuals. And a lot of the positions that are going to be in 10, 15 years from now, they don't exist today. And that can be said with a lot of the roles that individuals on this call could be part of. Probably 10, 15 years ago, these roles didn't exist. So I think it's about being open-minded. I think it's about being able to embrace technology, understanding what's coming, being on top of it, reading about it. And I think the theme of upskilling is going to be a huge aspect for organizations. I think as we get into a really tight labor market and as we get into a tight monetary market, right, with the recession looming, the ability to upskill and learn these tools, being able to leverage ChatGPT, being able to leverage automation tools, whatever it may be, is going to be a huge value add to yourself as an individual and as an employee.
For sure. Thank you. So here's my last question. How to navigate job interviews and onboarding process in a remote or hybrid working environment? Because Dejan, as you said, there are colleagues of yours who you've never met, but you've been working for many years. So we would love to hear your thoughts on that. So I guess, Hanna, I'll offer the question to you first.
Yeah, so in terms of the navigating the job interview process, I think that you can apply pretty much the same discipline as an in-person job interview. The only thing is there's some logistical considerations that you want to make as well when it's a virtual interview, that you sort of have to inject more efforts and energy to show your personality, to be clear in your answers, but also being considerate of the fact that technology is going to add some lagging or some some issues to your connections and communication with the person who is hiring you, because ultimately, an in-person interview, you're able to have a lot of access to the human cues that's available to you as an in-person interaction. You're able to sort of have a good sense of the person and their body language and all of those things that allow you to kind of adapt to the conversation. But online, you kind of you don't have those cues available to you. So being patient about that, being patient with the technology, adopt a communication strategy where you're clear, concise, you speak with pace, are important.
Yeah, and I'll echo, I agree with a lot what Hanna says. So my things will probably just copy hers in many aspects, but I think there's a lot of things. I think you have to look at it from two sides of the coin. First is, your pre-interview prep. No longer you just, when you were going into an in-office interview, you would almost do the same. You would check to see how far the interview is, how long it would take you to get there, whether you need to take a bus or a cab or whatever it is, the subway. And now that if you're doing a remote interview, you almost have to go through the same checks, just very differently. You have to check your technology like we did today. You have to make sure that your space is clean. You want to know that your lighting is okay, or where the camera is, and make sure that you're always looking at the camera. And being on an interview especially being on a digital interview, it can be hard to stay focused. I know, I'm using my personal laptop right now, and I had to disable my text messages because they just come in and they can be distracting, right? So it's important to remain focused on the screen. Try not to read scripts. It's really evident when you read a script. So it's important that you're prepared, you're well prepared. You wouldn't be able to have a script when you're in an in-person interview. It's also about managing your body language. You want to be relaxed. You don't want to be slouching. You don't want to be looking off to the side. You want to be able to focus on a camera. You need to be able to sit comfortably. And then it also comes to it dressing for a digital interview. So, don't dress down because it's a digital interview unless that's the company culture where you're interviewing. It's about matching. So, if I think at a bank, I'm going to come, whether it's going to be a suit or tie or whatever it may be, but dress as you would for going into an in-person interview, even though you're doing it virtually. Be professional.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I could add to that as well, the interview stage It's sort of like one input of evidence for the employer, how you function in a remote environment, right? So they're expecting, the same level of focus, attention, and quality of work, even though you're working in a remote environment. And so the way that they kind of gauge that is their interaction with you virtually at that first
And
interaction.
and I'm going to flip this again because I feel like interview is such a big topic. But remember that even if you are interviewing for an organization, you hold a lot of power as well. At the same time that you're being interviewed, you're also interviewing that organization. Make sure you come well prepared with questions to ask about company culture, their values, how you align, what's your job role, what's the job day-to-day functions. It's important to have these questions to be able to come prepared for these sorts of interviews. So definitely keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. I do have a add-on question on top of that. So, Dejan and Hanna, I don't know if you personally conduct interviews with candidates. So my question would be, assuming you do, or maybe you heard from your colleagues, are there any like red flags, like about candidates and like what they do or what they say in an interview that you or your organization or colleagues do not
There
necessarily
are.
appreciate?
There are. So I've probably done a million interviews. I used to be in recruitment, so every day was just interview after interview after interview. And there's definitely red flags. It's really evident when somebody says that they know how to do something on their resume and they don't. I don't need to be an expert in the role that I'm interviewing for necessarily, but I'm prepared with my questions and I know what the correct answer should be like. So it's really evident when I think to some roles that I used to interview for, and individuals couldn't walk me through the process, and then I know that they might not necessarily be telling the truth on their resume. I think also as an interviewer, it's important to help calm the situation, help calm the person that you're interviewing. Being on the flip side, when I've interviewed for BMO, it's intimidating. You're interviewing for a new organization, you don't know what's going on, and it can be intimidating. So it's about setting a comfortable and relaxing area. It goes back to that empathy piece that we talked about earlier. So there's definitely things you can catch on, but it's also important that you understand if, like I said, if the dog comes in mid-interview, am I going to penalize somebody and say they're not the right candidate? Probably not. But it's it's about being understanding.
Thank you. Hanna, anything from you?
Yeah, sometimes, I'll get, I've done a lot of interviews in a previous role at the legal and regulatory compliance. So some of the key questions that can really throw you off is when the interviewer asks you, tell me about, what you're excited about, what you have been doing lately. Tell me what what you really love to do. And so the person will end up talking about something that's completely different to the job that they're applying for, right? So be mindful of that. That's a one way that like really skilled interviewers have sort of adopt to kind of right away gauge whether or not you're the right person for the role. And so be careful about that.
I see. And so on the opposite side, are there anything that you've seen and which give you a wow moment and you feel like, oh, this is the perfect candidate, or that was really impressive and I definitely want to hire this person?
All the time. Yeah, it does. It's very true. When somebody comes so well prepared, like Hannah said, they know about the organization, they know their values, they've done their research, and it's evident they've done the research. They're not just reading off the website. They've dug deep. When they've looked at your profile, for example, on LinkedIn, and know your background and ask relevant questions, you can tell when somebody's really prepared. And there have been countless times around where I end an interview and I immediately go to the hiring manager and say, this person's it. Like, I guarantee you that if you hire this person, they're going to succeed. So yeah, it does happen all the time.
Yeah. So when you see their level of humility and vulnerability and accepting the fact that sometimes they don't know all the answers, and they emphasize teamwork and and personal learning, personal development, and that they're passionate about what they're talking about. Those are the things that are attractive to me as a recruiter, because it shows me that they care about their work, and they care about their own personal development in order to provide the best quality of work as possible. So those are the things that are attractive to me when I'm doing interviews.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think that wraps up all our questions. All of the comments and advice provided by Hanna and Dejan, they're great. And I hope for folks who are navigating job interviews and onboarding process, or if you're facing job loss or job searching, I hope all we had just then will be helpful for you. And then, so for now, I think I will open up the floor for any questions that you may have. Huda, I think, okay, I see 3 questions so far. So first one, please tell us more about reskilling and upskilling. So I assume that's a question coming from someone who already has a few years of work experience, and given where we are today, what advice would you give to someone who's already experienced and well seasoned in their current roles?
Yeah, so I'll take that first. As somebody who's navigated that, I can tell you it can be daunting. Like I said, prior to my current role, I worked in recruitment. To give you more context on that, I fell into recruitment by chance. I don't think anybody comes out of university and says, hey, I'm going to become a recruiter. And you can get siloed, right? I did a couple of years of recruitment, and you can get siloed into a role, and it's difficult sometimes to jump out, upskill yourself, reskill yourself at a certain point in your career. What I can say is get out of your comfort zone, leverage the tools. I know I leveraged the University of Toronto. I went and did my project management. I found a mentor, gained some mentorship, was able to use that to reskill myself, upskill myself. I jumped on opportunity, made lateral moves, such as taking on secondments. And ultimately that served me better than if I just was in a role that I wasn't enjoying anymore. And the upskilling allowed me to expand, grow my career, move positions, get promoted, and bring me kind of to where I am today. And again, that's just all a result of jumping out of your comfort zone, being prepared, and knowing what the market needs, and understanding where kind of organizations are going, or where you want to grow, and how you can navigate your way through an organization using those skills.
You know what? That's a perfect answer. Don't know if I could add more to that. Definitely, well, also zoning into and honing into building connections and sustaining connections and relationships are very important as well, considering the digital age. Yeah, so relationship building, I'll add to that.
Perfect. So second question, what tips you would share for career changes? Since COVID, lots of people moved away from I think it's like medical industry, hospitality, etc. If you can share that, that would be great.
And sorry, May, could you repeat the question again?
What tips you could share for career changes? So I assume that's for individuals who were in certain industry, and then at a certain point in life or something happened, they think this job is no longer for me, and they want to explore something completely different.
Yeah, I think it really relates to the question we just answered prior, which is, take the plunge, leverage your tools, be able to upskill, reskill. Ultimately, you're going to need to upskill and reskill if you're going to go into a completely new industry and take the plunge. I think it's also important that you're humble, that you have humility. Sometimes when you enter a completely new industry, or completely new role, or whatever it may be, you might need to take a lateral move. You might even need to take a move that's below where you were before, but it's ultimately better for you in the long run. So it's about understanding that. I think one of the best pieces of advice that my mentors, my bosses had always given me is, don't think about your next move, think about your 5-year plan. and think about your 10-year plan, because your next year can change. But if you have a 5-year plan and you want to get there, plan that out, because you might have to take those lateral moves. You might have to take a position from being a manager to an individual contributor, but ultimately to get yourself to that level.
Thank you.
So yeah, and for me, so I spent like 17 plus years in corporate, kind of straight into consulting out of university, and really was ambitious to grow and progress within the corporate world. And so for me, it was really about aligning to, what's valuable to me, what makes me happy, because I think sustaining happiness personally and also in your professional life are things that you really love and that you feel this tremendous sense of reward from as well. So I think it's a whole process and self-reflections that you need to sort of go through and ask yourself really key fundamental questions, as if you want a career change at a certain point and level in your life. Will the change bring about the type or the level of happiness that you want? Contentment? Will it really add to you and help you grow as an individual in a way that will make sense to you as well? So there's quite a bit of self-reflection that you should also do, as a part of making a mid-career change.
Thank you. My next question, actually 2 questions, are coming from someone who's trying to land a job at early stage in their career. So first one is how to ensure that you're memorable when networking. And second would be, what are some suggestions you have for job hunter or job hunt burnout and coping with the financial stress if not having a stable income until you eventually find one?
Yeah, so I see those questions in the chat, May, and it's funny. The first thing I did when I saw that question is I went to go see if that person had their camera on, and that's one perfect way of being memorable when you're networking. Like I said, we're in this digital environment. We're all on here. If everybody's a little square with other picture on it and their camera isn't on there, it's going to be hard to remember 28, 30 different names. But it's easy when you can identify and make those connections in person. So that's one of the first things I'd say is, raise your hand, say hi, open yourself up. That'd probably be the first thing. The second one is I would think a really personal question. I think everybody's going to have a different answer. I think it'd be really hard for somebody to kind of give a generic answer on how to handle job loss, job burnout, as well as being able to, stressing with financial issues or income while you're looking for a role. Ultimately, I say, leverage your network, leverage your friends, leverage your family, be mindful of what you're doing. There's a lot out there. We're lucky that we live in Canada. Canada is a great nation for being able to support you through tough times. That's what I would say on that second part of that question.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a difficult one to answer, the second part, but I'll go back to the first one yet in terms of being memorable when you're networking. And I think Dejan covered the remote aspect. I'll add to the in-person. When you are networking in person, to be fully present in the moment when you're connecting with that person, even for 30-second, 40-second, or a minute, to be fully present, to be interacting with them at the fullest, I think, and really listen to understand, listen to learn, and listen to, have a deeper understanding of the person, what they're talking about, versus trying to sort of get your point across that you need something or you want something and you're trying to secure something, because opportunities tend to come your way when you open up the door to be curious and learn about the situation and the person. And then the second part about the financial stresses, I know it's difficult as well. And Dejan really covered all of that, to leverage as much sources as possible, and working for the not-for-profit realm, as I became very active over the pandemic. I know that there's a lot of sources and resources that you can take advantage of from the not-for-profit and government resources as well to help you kind of, overcome the hurdle of securing a stable income while, worrying about the financial issues as well. And so I would recommend that you reach out to us or myself, I'd be happy to connect with you personally to introduce you to some of the resources that I know would be helpful.
Thank you, Hannah. Yes, so the individual who were asking this question, please feel free to reach out to our panelist after this session. I'm sure everyone's really happy to be able to help. I got one question. This is addressed to Hannah. So Hannah, you made a comment that professional or seasoned interviewers would know what is the right answer or a good answer for the question. Tell me about what you are excited to do. What are you really passionate about? So in your opinion, what is the right answer or what is a better answer for that question?
For that particular question, there is no right or wrong answer, because when someone asks you about what you're passionate about, what you have been doing recently that really interests you, that really excited you, there's no other answer than the reality of what you have been doing or what your experience was and what you are truly passionate about, right? So just making sure that you are aligned, like you have that pre-reflection in terms of before you enter the job, that looking at the interview from various perspectives, right? And so it doesn't mean that, the work that you have been doing or your passion in the community can't be aligned to what they're looking for. So it's really that pre-reflection, pre-work that you need to do so that your responses are aligned to what they're looking for. And so this is something that if you don't know, now that you know, you can make that alignment, right?
So try to be consistent.
Try to be consistent, but looking at the situation from different angles. So, if you are not 100%, like your experiences and your passion is not 100% aligned to the job, but you know that you can tackle it, you know that you can take it on, you know that you can do a great job, and you know that you can bridge that gap between your experience and what the job is looking for, is doing that pre-reflection, pre-assessment to find the alignment between your previous experience, your passion, and your fresh perspectives, and then aligning it to what the job is looking for. Because rarely you can actually be 100% aligned to the role that you're looking for, especially if you're looking for a new challenge or a change, right? And so just be conscious and be mindful to do the pre-assessment, the pre-reflection, and put yourself in the shoes of the interviewer. And when they ask the question, how do you align your experience to what the job is looking for, even though your experience is not 100% of alignment.
Thank you.
And I can even add just a very short thing is be genuine. Don't try to fake it. Interviewers can tell if, we can get into, when we're looking for a role and we get into a situation where we need to work, we can get interested in anything that comes in front of us. It can be from any organization, any first message from a recruiter, and you instantly think you fall in love with this organization, or you're going to fall in love with the company, the role, and it might not be the right fit for you. So be genuine, do your research, know what you want, know what you want in 3 months from now, because I can guarantee that where you are isn't permanent, and you will end up finding a career that you enjoy. You are going to find what you excel at, and you will be successful. So don't necessarily take the first thing that comes at you, because it might not be the right thing for you. So be genuine to yourself.
Yeah, I think that's very true. because you can fake one interview, but you can't fake your entire career at the new organization. So it's definitely important to just be genuine, be yourself. I have one last question from our audience here. I assume you guys have seen it. So how much of a factor are algorithm for screening suitable candidates who submit resumes and cover letters for prospective jobs? How does one get through those and get to the desk of a relevant HR person?
So I have to believe that it's a myth. I have never seen a software eliminate somebody because they don't have like a keyword, they don't have this or that. I know I used to use Workday extensively, and I think Workday is probably, you know, one of the largest HRM tools right now, if not the largest, that's used by most organizations. And I can tell you what really makes a difference is how a resume looks. You know, the fact that somebody looks at your resume for 7 seconds is true. When there's 100 applicants on a single role, which is most of the case that happens nowadays, there's no time to dissect every single aspect of your resume. So what happens before recruiters typically start looking at resumes is they have an intake call with the manager. And when they have an intake call with the manager says, hey, I want XYZ. These things aren't necessarily on the job description. The manager might say, hey, I want somebody with this specific skills, this specific interpersonal skills. They did tenure with that, and they can build out a profile. And what happens is recruiters typically take that built out profile that they get from the hiring leader and look at resumes and individuals based on that criteria. So, you know, you can definitely have all the desired skills and attributes that they put on a job description, but it's not necessarily going to help you land a job quicker. What's really important is how you sell yourself. It's how, you know, how aligned is your role to what you're applying for. If I wanted to apply for a senior executive role, I'm probably not qualified, and I definitely won't get that role. So make sure that you are qualified for the roles. Make sure that you understand what the jobs are. Make sure that your resume looks clean. I typically recommend putting it in a PDF format. Things like Word can be really disoriented when you look at it through Workday. I've seen it time and time again when a resume looks awful in Workday, and then you download it and you're like, wow, this is stunning. All the attributes and filters that run Word didn't load onto Workday properly. So typically keep your resume simple. Don't use any crazy fonts. Don't use any crazy colors. Make sure that it's straightforward. It's also really evident when somebody uses a resume template, because you have 15 resumes that look the exact same, just a different name. So, you know, keep it simple, put yourself through, and try to match yourself to the career as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to be creative and stand out. Keeping it simple and accessible is really important. But also the way that your cover letter and your resume should be structured from my perspective is to showcase your personality, your ambition, your goals, right? And so you stand out by being human. But how do you showcase that on a cover letter? Is saying, you know, where you like telling us where you're coming from, where you want to go, and what are the goal, the skills and experience that you have to support that. And so trying to be as human as possible so that the recruiter can see a personality shining through the paper and the resume is important. Yeah.
Thank you. It seems I have one last question. Between work from home and professional development, it can be difficult to find time for personal lives. Any tips for finding balance for personal time these days? I think, Dejan, you also touch on that. Since now we all work from home, you're really just in this little tight space, and then you work and then you live.
I
There's
am.
no clear boundary
I
anymore.
I am. If you guys could see my workstation, I talked about keeping a clean workstation. I'm not staying true to it. I have my BMO computer here, my BMO screen here. I'm on my kitchen table. I always joke with my fiance. I say, you know, she's always like, "Dan, why is all your stuff on the dining table?" And I said, "That's my office." I said, "Why is the dinner plates in my office?" But it's true. It's, you know, when you're working from home and you're obviously living at home. During the pandemic, we were doing everything from home. You couldn't go to the gym, you couldn't see your friends. I mean, they closed playgrounds. It was tough times, and we really blurred those lines between shutting off And that's where things come in for Zoom fatigue, Microsoft Teams fatigue, whatever you want to call it. Burnout is a real thing, and it's extremely prevalent when it's has to do with technology. What I say is, make sure you have time for yourself. Know when to shut off, whether that's reminding yourself and putting it in your calendar and say, hey, I need some me time. I know a big thing that we do on our team is people block off their lunches so that they aren't bothered. They say that they're out of office and they'll go and take a walk or encourage themselves to go take a walk or do something, but get off of your devices, make time for yourself, enroll yourself in activities. Like I said, I love playing sports. I love going to the gym. That's me time. I need that time so that I can function as an employee better, more better. Excuse me. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, definitely make time for yourself. For me personally, is meeting my friends and going for a Korean barbecue. I love that. So, and there's a lot of things that you think that you should do or be a part of and all of that, but do make time for something that you feel will bring you joy. Have a conversation with a friend, have a chat with them, or go out to eat something, nice, or but at the end of the day, you have to make that time. It's for you. If we think about it, we are always using ourselves to serve everything around us, whether it be our job, our career, or our mind, like trying to learn as much as possible. But we rarely actually take the time to do something that we love personally, that brings us joy. And you have to make that time. Like, you just have to.
Yeah, and I'll even add to that. I once attended an event from an individual, I forget their name, but they're deemed Canada's busiest CEO. And that's because they have the most LinkedIn followers or they're paying the most or whatnot. But they were the CEO of Campbell Brothers, the moving company, or AMJ Campbell, sorry. And one piece of advice that this individual gave to all of us, there was about 25 of us, and he said, raise your hand if you're a heart surgeon. And he looked around the room, nobody was a heart surgeon. And he said, then none of you are too busy that you have to answer a call at this time, at any hour, that you have to answer a meeting or do work. He goes, nobody's lives are at risk if you don't answer this email at 7 p.m. or if you don't continue working until 9 p.m. And so what he did is he made it his organization that nobody takes anything after 6 p.m. And he says what happened instantly was productivity skyrocketed. The employees were happier, engagement was better, and he forced upon taking that time for yourself. So it really does work. So definitely ensure that you do that.
Thank you. All right. I think this will wrap up our Q&A session. Yeah, we had a lot of good questions. Thanks, everyone. It seems like the evening could carry on with more discussion, but we are running out of time. This event is recorded and the video will be published on our Woodsworth College YouTube channel. For further discussion, feel free to join the 30 minutes breakout room following Nathalie's closing remarks. So for now, I'll hand over the stage to Hanna for her closing statement.
Yeah, so thank you so much again for having myself and Dejan as part of this event, and all of you who took the time to join, reconnect with your previous colleagues, and learn about something new about the world of remote networking, career development, relationship building, that I hope you found it useful and helpful, and that you remember and take stock of your accomplishments, your skills, abilities, and what you, how you can add value. And you do add value. Your experience is valuable. And so if you take, the whole journey of looking for a job or securing a new career from the perspective that you yourself, your experience and your perspective are valuable and unique. Taking it from a strength-based perspective will be very, I think, helpful to you. And so I hope that this event has given you some new insights and new ideas and a new way of looking at certain things that will be helpful to you.
Thank you. Natalie, I will hand over the stage to you now.
Perfect. Thank you very much, May. This has been an absolutely wonderful evening. On behalf of the Woodsworth College Alumni Association, we would like to express our utmost and sincere gratitude for both of our speakers for this amazing discussion. I think we can all leave with very practical tools to face the current labor market. To all of our guests joining tonight, thank you very much. If this is one of your first times at our event, we hope to see you again soon in our future events. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Carolyn, the Alumni Development Officer at Woodsworth College, for helping us organize this fantastic event and also managing all the Zoom technical problems and difficulties as we go. This concludes the portion of our evening. We invite all the remaining participants to join us in one of the 4 breakout rooms available. Hanna and Dejan will also join the groups as well. You can now see them hopefully on your screen, and please click join to enter the room of your choice. Thank you and happy discussion.